Hello and welcome, everybody. How are you doing today? My name is Philip Ramos with the Strength Studio. Super excited to bring you guys here another interview. Today I have Judi Sears with me. So I'm super excited to bring her on. Super excited to have her come in, talk about her strengths. And one of the great things actually about doing this interview after the interview that we just did with Melinda is she also has Army at #1. So you're going to be able to see maybe commonalities, but you're also going to see a lot of differences. And I absolutely love this because we were just having a conversation about this actually, how we make the assumption because someone has this theme and someone has this theme that we assume they're the same or we assume they react the same. But we really are, we're a combination, a complex combination of all 34 of our themes, and where those themes lie is going to influence one after the other. So I'm super excited to be bringing Judi to you. We're going to talk about, again, her themes, her experiences, who she is, how she builds her team, some of the things that she does. So I'm super excited to have this here. So hopefully you take time and take notes throughout these. As you're watching these interviews, listen to what people do. How do they approach things? So what are some of the ways that they've learned strengths? Because these are the kinds of tips and tricks and tools that can really implement maybe strengths better in your life and see how you can utilize them. Okay. So without any further ado, Judi, thank you so much and welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Oh, I love it. Absolutely love it. Super fun. Okay. So let's go and start off again. Everybody has their strengths, right? They take this journey. In fact, someone posted in our last interview, they had the courage to finally take their strengths. And hopefully this helps people realize that at some point you just got to make the jump, right? You got to make the jump. But with who you are, your role, tell us a little bit about, for those, I'm sure a lot of people don't know necessarily who you are. Tell us about yourself. Tell us about the roles you play in your life, so we can kind of get a little bit of background about that.
Okay, so I'm a mom. I'm a wife first of 45 years and a mom of 5 adult children that are all grown and gone and 7 grandchildren. And I also am a diamond in doTERRA, which is a direct sales company that I'm part of. I help
Excellent.
people with their health.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah,
I love
that's
it.
what I do. That's my role.
Okay, so and now in regards to, like, for example, so you diamond mom, who you are. What do you think you specialize in? Like, what do you think that you really emphasize maybe within that role?
Well, I think what I'm particularly good at, Philip, is individualization. That's my number 2 strength. And if you're familiar with kinesiology, I muscle test, I'm an iridologist, so I can read someone's iris and help them with their health challenges. I'm really good at listening to your story and then pulling the threads, figuring out what's the root of the problem and then how to get you engaged in solving it. One of the things I do, you can see my door is behind me. One of the things I do when I'm seeing a client, for instance, is always to put them towards the door. I put them in the power position because you are the one in charge of your health, not me. I'm going to give you some good directions and you have a choice to follow them. But I always put my back to the door so that you're in the power position and you are the one taking charge of your health. And
I
that's my
love it.
individualization coming out.
Good. Providing them with the tools, right? Identifying who they are, what are their needs, and then at that point saying, "Here you go."
Yeah,
I love it.
absolutely.
So how long ago did you take your assessment? Like, so how long have you been, I guess, aware of your strengths?
That is 2016 is when I took it, December of 2016.
Okay.
I'll be honest, I was super grumpy about it. I didn't like it. I didn't like any of my strengths. I thought they were all sort of useless. I had a kind of a rough childhood, and I was the oldest child in this family with a lot of dysfunction, and I felt like those weren't really my real strengths. I
Mm,
felt like those were how I adapted or survived in a sort of hostile situation.
sure,
So I
sure.
didn't really appreciate them at first. And it's taken some counseling with good people like you and a handful of others that I've talked to over the years about my strengths, because it does feel a little bit like, is this really from a higher power, or is this
Yeah,
just because you got forced into this role? You're the
yeah,
oldest child, you're in charge of everything, right?
yeah, Yeah.
So
And I think that I love that you say that, because my experience, right, of so many people that take their strengths assessment, that's a common experience. It's a common right. They first get their strengths, they read these themes, and they're trying to identify, oh, I have this because of my life experiences, right? Or I have this because of my trauma, more often than not.
exactly.
That people identify this theme or the definition of the theme with particular traumas that they've gone through, and so they've adapted to that. And I think what's important is when we look at strengths, right, really identify these are themes, if you will, that have characteristics that drive, who we are, the way we naturally think, feel, and behave. So in the situation of your childhood, of your trauma, of these things, there's these characteristics that drove you to act in a way or feel a certain way. So we often connect that with those experiences. And if they're bad experiences, we say, "Oh yeah, that was bad news, right? That was terrible." I shared this about my woo all the time, where I self betrayed. I became someone I didn't want to be. And but the truth of it is, and so I said, "Well, woo's not good. It's bad." But what I realized is what I'm driven for is meeting new people, me getting you to like me and say, "Oh, you like blue? I guess I like blue. Oh, you like this kind of music? Okay, well then I like this music also, right?" And so we find ourselves in what we're driven. We may self betray. We may hinder ourselves. And so I love that you're being vulnerable about that, because that's a common experience for so many people.
Yes. And Melinda actually mentioned it yesterday with her harmony as well, that you feel like you say, your mom really wants peach and brown at your wedding colors. So you go with peach and brown and you don't really like peach and brown. You
Yeah.
just say yes because you want everyone to get along or whatever. So you do feel like it's a bit of a betrayal.
Hmm.
And then as you learn more, you realize, oh, that's actually one of my superpowers.
Yes.
But I didn't know it for a long time. So 2016 might have been when I started, Philip, but in 2020, what are we? 2025 now.
Yeah.
Almost 10 years later, I'm finally starting to get it,
I
right?
love
It's
it.
taken me a while.
I love it. Well, I think it takes a lot of us a while, right?
Yeah.
Um, so now, when you say so that close to 10 years, kind of, I would say, right, strengths journey, really investing in it now. What do you think has stood out the most to you? So you already mentioned your harmony. You mentioned your individualization. What do you think is the theme that has really kind of stood out for you in your top five, that you say, "Ooh, I see that. I whether you saw it when you first took it, or you're seeing it now." What do you think is the theme that stands out the most to you?
Well, that's an interesting question. Would depend on the day and what I'm actually involved in, right? Right now, I'm involved in trying as a way post-menopausal 65-year-old woman trying to release 10 pounds. And my discipline is incredibly handy, right? I'm using it every day. I'm not cheating. I don't make excuses for myself. My relator is something I use almost every day because I teach by stories and I
Mhm.
learn by stories. I used to think, Philip, that I wasn't very smart because I always considered myself somewhat of a tactile learner, right?
Okay.
When I was in pre-med, a pre-med student, and if I was working on a cadaver or whatever, I could answer every question about the body because it's not flat on a page.
Sure,
But if you
sure.
handed me something flat on a page, I couldn't see it. But
Right,
if I could
right.
actually put my hands in there and go to work, I knew the name of every bone and every organ and every system, whatever it
Yeah.
was happening. So I find that it depends on what I'm doing in my life that day to which strength really rises to the top.
Mm. That's really good awareness too, that you can identify that, because I think so often people, and maybe this is something that you're identifying now as you progress in your journey versus before, but I think one of the biggest things is people don't take the time to be aware, right? Our themes influence the way we naturally think, feel, and behave about everything we do every day, right? Whether we're engaged in a parenting, whether we're engaged in this case in your as a diamond leader, and you're developing your team, whether you're individualizing a client, right, and your back's up against the door and you're providing them with the information for them to be successful. And however, all these different roles, these hats, these things that we do our themes influence the way we naturally think, feel, and behave. And so the fact that you can separate that and identify, ooh, I'm noticing this, is it's a learned behavior, right? It's not, it's something that we need to learn how to identify within the strength, but it's also something that we need to constantly be aware of because it allows us to adjust, right? Because I'm sure the way you've noticed how they work, you've probably noticed how they're, maybe they cause some harm at times, right? Or they hinder us.
Yes. Well, and interesting, Philip, that you brought that up because it was just Martin Luther King Day not too many days ago. And I was in an airport, and there's a lot of, what do I want to say, energy around politics right now.
Yes.
And I happened to be waiting for a bus next to a person that was also waiting for a bus, and she had just flown in, and I really, we felt entirely differently about things. And my harmony and my relator came completely into full blown focus. And I was able to tell her through stories and hearing her out how I see it. And when I was through, she said, "Do you have a card or something?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, I have to say, I've never met a woman like you. I've never met any." And she said, "You never raised your voice. You never got flustered. You never argued with me. You just helped me see it from another point of view. And no one's ever helped me see that before." So it's a gift, right? You can use your strengths as the gift that they're to be. I
Yeah.
had no animosity towards this woman. She was welcome to feel however she wanted to feel, but it was curious to hear her say, "I've never met anyone like you."
Yeah.
And I suggested maybe she change her news channels and she expand her friendships. Right? Because sometimes we do get really comfortable in our niche, Philip, and we don't like a lot of outside people sometimes. And I'm guilty of that. Harmony loves my close little knit group, but it's important for me to get out of that so
Yeah.
that we can see it from somebody else's point of view. It's
Yeah.
it's really what keeps us divided so often as a nation or as a people is, I'm not hearing you. I'm hearing a lot of chatter from the media or a lot of other things, or my friends are just bouncing back my own thoughts to myself when really what I need to do is listen to someone different.
Well, we were talking about this earlier, previous to the interview, and you talk about, listening to, our relationships, our spouses, that sort of thing. And one of the things that I know that I've learned that I probably gained from strengths more than anything else that I've done, and I mentioned this to you before, is it forces me to ask better questions. I honestly don't know. I mean, yes, you're telling me the result of I believe this, or I feel this way, or I like this, or I don't like this. But often when we ask better questions, it leads to us understanding, oh, this is why you do that, right? Because we can sit here and say, our spouse is doing whatever, and we're like, why do you do this, right? Out of frustration. We're not really searching for the answer. We're
Right.
just angry that it's even happening, right? Why,
Right.
right? Or we look at it and be like, huh, so why do you do this? Why do you approach this same problem or this idea or this or politics in this way? What is it that's driving that? And when we ask more questions, we start to realize we are more in common than we think we are, as we're all in pursuit of truth. We're all in pursuit of what we may find is truth, right? And so I think that's a great example of spending the time with people that maybe we don't see eye to eye with. But if we spend more time maybe asking questions, gaining some knowledge, we can start to develop really more intimate relationships. In this case, right, really utilizing your relator. So I love that.
Yeah. Well, and another thing I'll add, Philip, that people I would suggest for people that are watching this, you can get a book and it allows you to take the and get the top five.
Right,
But
right.
really, I encourage you to spend the money and get all 34. And the reason is if you just looked at my top five, Philip, you would think that I was all about relationships. But if you put my top 10 in there, 6 out of 10 are execution. So I do like to get the job done, right? And I am going to be happy when I've taken down Christmas and it's all boxed up and put away neatly and Valentine's is out or whatever, right? The
Yes,
next moving on to the next thing is going to bring me happiness. And
yes,
and some of the ways that I feel fulfilled in my life that's not very popular anymore is I have dinner on the table at 5:30 every day for 45 years. I mean, you can ask my husband. It's just who I am and what I do because it's
Yes.
part of a love language to me. It's part of what I do to let
Yes.
him know I really care about you. This is important to you. So it's important to me. Right. And my discipline comes in, my execution comes in and gets the job done for
Yes.
I don't know how many days that is, 45 times 365 days, but it's a
Yes.
lot of days. And
Yes.
people don't always love cooking or always love the thing, but you don't do it because of that. You've got to put your strengths in and what matters in your marriage, and it's what works for us.
I love it. I think that's such a beautiful thing when you identify not just what you said, maybe your top five in what most people know, right? When I ask people, "Oh, do you know your strengths?" They'll tell me maybe they're one, maybe they're three, maybe even their top five. But when you ask them further than that, they don't know. And so what you're missing out on is a big portion. We talked about this earlier about you're a combination. You're not just harmony, right? You're not
Right.
just individualization, which are both relationship strengths. And if people don't really dissect it or go down it, they are going to make the assumption, that you are all this. So just speak to what you're speaking to. So you have harmony, individualization, and relator in your top five.
Hmm.
So all three of those, and you have discipline and responsibility in there as well. So if someone were to look at that at your top five, and they're going to make the assumption, oh, Judy's all this, right, or all
Right.
relationships. But then what you just brought up, you go further into your six or 10. You have focus, restorative, and achiever. Again,
Mhm.
all three executing. Then you have activator, and then you have consistency with this another executing. So you have yes relationship strengths, right? But you have out of those 10, three of them are relationship, six of them are executing, right? So
Yep.
I think
Yeah.
that you start to see that yes, Judy's a great relationship builder, which is why dinner, she relates, she helps people, she loves people. But if you want to know anything about Judy ain't fooling around. She's going to get the job done, right?
Yeah.
Judy, she is going to get the job done. And I think that that's one thing that really diving further into who you are, there's an enormous amount of knowledge, enormous amount of awareness that we can really, come across. And I love that. So,
Well, and Philip, an enormous amount of compassion.
yes,
Because you learn to be compassionate with yourself. I think most of us struggle with that. Most of us say, I don't like my woo, like you, I don't like my harmony, right? Most of us say, oh, I don't like that trait, whatever it is. And what you end out with is so much compassion and appreciation for your own uniqueness. Like you said, someone else can have harmony at number one and be entirely different than you. And that is awesome. It's
yes,
awesome. It's
yes,
like a fingerprint, right? Like a
yes,
thumbprint.
yes.
It's so individual.
Yeah,
And
we all
it's
got
just
one, right? But they
amazing.
just
Yeah. Yeah. It's just such a gift. When
yes,
I very first took the Strength Finders test and got it back, even though I didn't like what it said about me, I really thought to myself, if God were making a personality test, because I'd done, you're a red and a blue, my husband's a yellow
yes,
and a white, I did all these different things over the years. And what I really came away with is, gosh, this is so awesome because it's only looking for what's right about you
yes,
instead of your flaws. I'm not a yellow, Philip. I'm
yes.
not skydiving with anyone. I'm not fun. But I love what I love. And if you are hungry, you want to hang with me. Or if you're
Yes,
worried about your health, you want to be with me, right? Whatever it is. So if you want to get a job done, you want to talk to
yes,
me. So,
yes,
it comes away without you feeling like, well, I'm just flawed,
yeah, yeah.
which is how I think all the other tests kind of make you feel.
Well, and I think it's human nature, right? For us to, as we get on this road of self-development, I think we often can't help but look at our weaknesses and say, surely if I worked on these, right? My spouse has identified them, my parents, my trauma, my friends, and they say, you'd be much better if you worked on this, right? So we
Right.
often approach self-development with a negative mindset, almost like an empty take mindset, where we say, we're empty down here, so we got to put all our energy in filling this up. But when we do, we realize we're still unfulfilled. We're still like feel like, right? I'm like, that's not who I am. It's not what I want to do. But when we start to identify who we are, we're like, yes, right? Your individualization, your discipline, and you start to fall in love with that is we start to identify the fact just because one person determines fun, right, as yellow, that, we can start to realize there's a lot of fun in purple. There's a
Yeah,
lot of fun in executing, right? And
right.
having dinner on the table or doing these kinds of things or talking, having these kinds of conversations, they can be really great, fun conversations. And we talked to some of your teaching experiences and how you've been able to attract a lot of people and help a lot of people that probably out of those environments be like, man, Judi is so, I love being around her. And so we can easy, look at something else and say, that's fun, and we diminish some of the other things. But again, I think we're really, and as we search for who we are, we start to really expand that idea. And so I love the concept of let's pour into what's right versus sitting here trying to focus on these, barrels of weaknesses and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So in identifying who you are, which, we're identifying who you are, what's great about you. We even talked about your superpower and your individualization, as well as obviously identified your discipline and how that influences, your marriage, your life. What would you say, because we all have themes that just don't seem to, we struggle with, right? We're like, oh gosh, I'm trying to find the love for that, right? Or trying to find the joy in that, or it just seems like that's the one. What would you think is the strength or the theme that you struggle with the most, that you're like, man, it just seems like that thorn, or I'm still working on it? And there's moments of glimpses, but it's that one that you just feel like you struggle with.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a one as much as it is that umbrella of
Mm.
execution. I sometimes think, wow, Judi, are you just a piece of machinery? Are you like a person? Right? Or do you just get a lot of jobs done? So
Yes.
I can get rather hard on myself in terms of so much executing is going
Yes.
on.
Yes.
And there are times, Philip, just to sit and rock the baby, right?
Yes.
The laundry will wait, right?
Yes.
And the relationships matter more. So I think no matter what anybody's strength is, there'll be sort of a basement of that. And they have to figure out, well, today I'm rocking the baby
Hmm.
and tomorrow I'll do the laundry.
Yes.
Because it just moves off the list. We all have magic phones nowadays. I used to write every single thing on a pad of paper. Nowadays, I can just take that, cross that off, and move it to Saturday. I'll do laundry on
Boom.
Saturday.
Yeah, there we
Yeah.
go. I love it. I love it.
So yeah, I think again, we look at ourselves and think, well, I probably ought to balance that a little more, or I could balance it a little more.
Good for you. And I think that having, again, going back to what you mentioned, having all your themes versus the top five, if you only saw your top five, you might not have been aware of how much executing is going on in your life. And you're not aware of how important it is to you, right? Not to diminish it. It is
Hmm.
important. You find value in it, you find joy in it, you find accomplishment in it. And so it is a big part of you. But just like anything, we can overdo things. We talked about woo. I could overdo my woo, right? I could overdo things where now it puts me in pickles. Now I'm in trouble. Now now I'm not sure if I should be doing this anymore. So you look at your executing, ways of going about things, and we can very, without knowing the details, without knowing the information, we could either justify this is who I am and this is what I do and not care about anybody else, or we swing more aggressively into the other end and say, you're right, everybody says it's bad, so I should stop doing it. But instead,
Right.
you find the details, you find the information, you say, okay, I'm going to purposely swipe this to Saturday, and spend time with the
Mhm.
baby, or vice versa, because you're looking for that balance for yourself. And that's awesome.
Yes. Well, and I can definitely, Philip, if someone gives me really negative feedback, I can, especially if they're related to me, I can really go into the basement of my harmony.
Mm,
I can start to not function because I start to feel like I didn't meet your needs. I didn't make you happy. I didn't XYZ, whatever you're accusing me of. Um, and that's not healthy at all. It actually kind of has made me fetal before. And I've had to
sure.
really work to get out of that and not sit around and pout and say, I must have just been a terrible mother or
Sure.
whatever. And mom
Sure.
struggled with that anyway.
Sure, sure. Well, I love how we've started this because here we are talking, because I think sometimes people think, number one, we take the Gallup strengths, right? Whether if we're in doTERRA or outside of doTERRA, they work with 90% of Fortune 500 companies, and we start to get these feelings or these ideas that it's only for business or it's only for my career, it's only for this. But we've spent, right, this entire time
Yeah,
talking about really how it's influenced you, as a mom or in your role or as a parent or as a friend or, with people you care about with their health. Now, with that being said, you are, you're a diamond rank in doTERRA, and forgive me if I get this wrong, but you've done Diamond Club 5 times, right? Diamond Club
true.
5 times.
Yep,
You've been in the top 20, top 25, like each time, right?
true.
So you're obviously good at it, right?
Yeah.
You execute, you've done things in a certain way. So how is strengths, now that we're going to take it out of, personal life, how is strengths, how have you experienced them as a leader in doTERRA? How have you experienced,
Oh,
how has
that's
it
such a
helped you?
great
How do they
question.
work?
Yeah, such a great question because for those of you that are familiar with strengths, my adaptability is number 34, which means basically I have none. And so when you're doing Diamond Club, for those of you that don't know, it's a regimented program. You have a certain amount of people you need to talk to and sign up. You have certain quotas to meet, certain amount of sales, all of those kinds of things, and follow up to help the customer the next month that you signed up the previous month. All different aspects. And so before I ever set out, before I ever even say, I'm going to do this, I map it out, Philip, and I've got a plan A, and that's ideal, right? But
Yeah,
it doesn't stay. It
right.
snowed in Chicago and your flight got delayed. It snowed in Denver and you're hanging out overnight. You're not even getting to the thing at all. I've had all different scenarios. Nobody coming to class. You've flown to Oklahoma and there's not a living soul to talk to. Every single scenario, people think, oh, she got there because she had all this luck, or all of her team performed perfectly, or whatever it was. I don't know what their perception is, but none of it's true. None of
Yes,
it's true. You have to have a plan B and a plan C and a plan D. And
yes,
because I'm organized about that and I have things set up in such a way, and I have a great spouse, Philip, honestly, I can say, hey, it's snowing too hard. I'm not going to get to that place. Can you book me to California instead? And
yeah,
he's great to fix my flights, to help me get the right
awesome.
hotel and the right rental car and the right anything I need. So, he's very strategic. He also has his 34. And so it really helps us work together better. You didn't ask this question, but I will tell everyone, if you struggle in your marriage, both of you get all 34. It will 100%. It's like marriage counseling on steroids because
Totally,
you
totally.
finally, he used to tell me things, Philip, like, oh, you need to be paying over, you need to oh, and I'd be so mad. I'd be like, this is my business. You stay out of my business. And then I realized he was so helpful. He was strategic. He could see it before I could see it, and he
Wow,
could help me
that's
meet my
wonderful.
goals. So we no longer clash, but we sure as heck did before Strength
Yeah,
Finders. It
yeah.
has significantly helped us.
I love that. So two things. Number one is you talked about your I adaptability at number 34. And I think so often, right, you going back to the full report, you going back to the information, we look at our top five, we look at even our 10, and we say, and we focus so much on, okay, this is what I need to do. But along the lines of what we need to do, we also need to identify who we're not, so for example, for my last one is harmony, right? But my
Mhm.
second to last is competition. And in most of my life in sales, I spent a lot of my career in sales, and the constant, in my face of these are my numbers, this is their numbers, this is what I'm doing, this is what they're doing. I don't thrive in competition environments. Doesn't mean I wasn't good in sales, doesn't mean I didn't love what I did, but me comparing myself to my peers or management doing that, it doesn't drive me. It doesn't motivate me. I'm not excited about that. One of the sentences in my themes in one of the in my positivity says, I celebrate everybody that plays. I don't care who wins. That's an example, right?
Yeah,
I don't care who wins the game. Let's just play. Let's have a good time, right? So that's
yeah,
big. So identifying who we are and identifying what we're not can really help us come up with a great plan. And I love that. And then moving into what you said about right relationships. So, and I've said this many times before. My wife and I, we've done counseling, we've gone to couples therapy, we've done individual things, we've done couples retreats, we've done communication courses. There isn't one single thing that I can give credit to that has done more for our marriage than strengths, because the what it showed me is when my wife is telling me this and telling me that, and she says, I've already told you this, right? Or how many times we have to be married before you get this about me? And I'm just like, I still don't get it. Right? I don't know. But when I read it on a piece of paper, I'm like, this is what she's been trying to tell me. This is
Yes.
what's going on. And it gave me the ability to gather that information without trying to sift right through all the emotion and the things she didn't like and what she did like and the times I hurt her versus the times I helped, to the just boil it down to like, oh, this is what she's saying. So I
Yeah.
love that. That really same thing. That is so when you talk about that from a marriage perspective, I'm assuming same thing as a leader, probably knowing that information about your team is probably just as valuable, right?
Absolutely. When they have sticky issues, personality things happening, people on the team disagreeing or whatever, they always know that I can unruffle the feathers, right? Let's just get Judy in the middle of it. She'll start to sort it out because I really do want to hear all the sides. And
Yes.
I'm sincere about it. The individualization, or what, I don't know which trait it is, but maybe it's restorative, maybe it's both. But I want to hear the story, and then I want to start to help you see, okay, let's see what we can unravel
Yeah.
and get back to friendship,
I
right?
love it. Well, if we go back to, you and I meeting last night in our class, you just mentioned the metaphor of unraveling the feathers of harmony, right? That's kind
Right.
of what they're there to kind of provide that. So you've identified your harmony, what you did with your individualization, your restorative, and I think that that's such a we are a complex combination more than we are just one specific thing, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And it's such a blessing because the other part that we haven't talked about at all, but I mean, we named them as basements, but they're actually called blind spots on the
Yes.
test.
Yes.
And those are very helpful because they allow you to see yourself more clearly. You
Yes.
can see, oh, my restorative could come across as all you see is what needs to be fixed,
Yes.
instead of, hey, I'm just here to help you. If you're in, I'm in.
Yeah.
If you're not in yet, you're good. I
Yes.
mean, I've had a lot of people over the years tell me that I'm so gifted at sales because I pull a takeaway, is what it's called. But
Yeah.
I didn't even know I was, Philip. It was so natural to me to say, if you love that disease or that disorder, you should keep it. I'm not going to take it away from you if it's really important to you, right?
Yeah.
Some things like that are part of our identity, unfortunately. We've had
Yes.
them so long that if someone tries to help us heal, we're too scared to do it.
Yes. Yes.
So,
So
and
true.
I totally respect that. I
Yeah.
just wait till they're ready.
There you
Right?
go.
You wait
I
till they're
love
ready.
it. So, in regards to obviously, you mentioned Diamond Club with your adaptability. You just mentioned, in terms of utilizing, the way gifted in sales in your takeaway. What do you think? How is your strengths, knowing your strengths, and specifically at a leader, right? At a diamond rank, you have a team, you're a leader. You probably taught people, right, how to do Diamond Club, that sort of thing. How is your strengths and knowing your strengths really helped you? Your leadership style, or approach your team in a certain way? What is that? How do you do that, and how's that, how has that influenced your approach to that?
Well, I do coach a lot of my leaders for Silver Club or Diamond Club, and give them ideas that might work for them. But part of that, Philip, comes from, and I don't know which trait is leading this out, but I have never been, I can honestly, I know this is weird to say, but I cannot think of a time in my life that I actually found something intimidating, meaning someone in particular.
Oh,
So
wow.
if I don't know something and I know that Philip knows it or Melissa knows it, I'm calling them. And I'm
Right.
not embarrassed about it. I'm not shy to say, I don't know how to do that. So
Yeah.
when I first started Diamond Club, I actually stalked, you can do that nowadays on Facebook, the winner of the previous Diamond Club.
Ooh,
And I sent her a Facebook message and said, "Hey, I'd love to. I'll do anything I'll trade anything. I'll read your eyes. You give me the hardest person in your family that's got health challenges. I don't care. Give it to me. I just want to trade. I need some of your time." And she met with me, and it was amazing. And I learned a ton. I'm still learning from her all the time. So I don't allow myself to say, I don't know how to do that. I just go find out how to do that. I go learn from someone else, and then I can give it away
that's
to my
fantastic.
team, right? And because I have such a great network of a lot of blue diamonds, presidential diamonds in doTERRA, they often want me to come teach a class for them on hormones or something that I'm gifted at. And so then they'll teach me strategy.
Yeah.
Philip, it's not my thing. I mean, the beautiful thing about Strength Finders is you will see, you guys, I don't balance checkbooks. Okay. I don't. It's not that I'm dumb, and it's not that I couldn't balance a checkbook. It's that
Right.
I'm not going to balance a checkbook. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to use an envelope system. I'm going to use whatever I have to use, but I'm
Yeah.
not doing that. Right.
Yeah. Yes.
So like you said earlier, recognizing what I'm not
Yes.
allows me then to give what I am to somebody else's team, and they give
Yes.
me what they naturally are. And we can
Yes.
honor that instead of the only way to be a good leader is to have all of it. It's
Yes.
just not true. It's just not
Yes.
true. We
Yes.
we have our gifts, and we should be sharing them with each other, and not
Yes.
allow ourselves to be stuck in, I'm too intimidated to call her, or I'm too, it's never true.
Yeah.
Philip, there's I mean this sincerely. And again, maybe it's my harmony, but there are very few jerks in the world. Most people are not jerks. They are
Yes.
really nice, and they really want to help you. If you just
Yes.
sincerely say, I don't know how to do that, but I'd sure love to learn.
Yeah, I love your approach there where you talked about, how you went and, we call it Facebook stalking, or in this
Yeah.
case, you're calling, but in my mind, right, that's just super deliberative. You're like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
going to go find the most successful person at this particular thing and I'm going to connect with them, right?
Yeah.
And then you're going to disseminate, you were very focused, right? Which is going to be your number six. You're getting in there, you're doing your thing, and you're like, okay, now I'm going to disseminate this information to the people I care about, like what you said. You're going to relate to them, right? You're going to help them solve, you restore. So that's phenomenal. I think that's such a wonderful way in which you identify what you said, right? With the checkbook, who you are and who you're not, and what you're not going to do. I can be more effective by really taking my, instead of trying to make up a strategy, why not I go to someone that has it and see successful people and grab the information I need to duplicate, not just for myself, but the people that I care about. I think that's
Yes.
what a great approach to that. That's phenomenal. That is phenomenal.
And remember that people are always watching. Your children, your spouse, your other teammates, people are watching you get good mentoring.
Yes.
And then they're going to feel free to go get good mentoring. And if I don't have an ego about that and say, my team all went to Philip because he would help them, right? If I move out of the way and allow Philip to be smarter at this thing than I am, then everybody grows. But if
Yes.
I think I have to have all XYZ and et cetera, then I'm going to hold everyone back.
Yes.
And I never want to do that.
Yeah.
People have their own needs. They need to make $1,500 a month. They need to make $6,000 a month. They need to make $10,000. Whatever it is they need, I want to help them get that.
I
Even if it
love
means
it.
I got to get out of the way, right?
Yes,
And
for
say,
sure.
go here, go there.
For sure. So, along your strengths journey, talking about your family, talking about your business, what do you think has been the greatest takeaway, right? Of all the things that you think that I've gained from, I've learned from, I see it in my personal life, I see it in my business life. What is one of the greatest takeaways that you feel like you have gained from your strengths journey, right? Learning this process about yourself, about other people.
Gosh, Philip, I'm going to be really vulnerable. You basically. So, so when I started this situation with you, I'll just tell everyone in the audience, Philip and I had met a couple of times, but I wouldn't say that we knew each other. I knew his wife, and I'd worked with her a couple of times, but I wouldn't even say that I knew that much about her either. And I got, the opportunity to take your program. And the very first night, Philip was telling a lot of stories, and his stories were pushing my buttons. And I didn't expect that. What I expected was Philip was going to teach me how to be more successful in business. That's what I thought I was taking. That's what I thought I was doing. And I was surprised by the emotional meltdown. He taught us Thursday night was our first night. By Monday morning, I'm writing Philip an email telling him he's about to be a marriage counselor, a family counselor, a psychotherapist. I mean, I did not know, Philip. I did not know.
Wow.
I thought all of those things, I didn't expect them to come up. I really didn't. I didn't know they'd come up. So, what has changed the most significantly for me, Philip, to be honest, is my relationship with my children.
Mm,
You and I hashed that out from the very first day that we met for my private consultation. And I would say 90% of angst is gone. I,
wow.
I would say things that I feel close to tears, but things change that I never expected. My number one thing that I would say to everyone about strength finders and why to take the test and all of that's awesome. Remember, I've owned it a little over 8 years, but it really, if you want to change everything, take the test and then get a coach
Mm,
because it will help you change everything. It
wow.
really did. And even when we don't necessarily fix it, we see it differently. We're
Yes.
out of the victim of it.
Yeah.
And we allow the other person to be 100% who they are instead of, I got to fix that. I got to change that. I got to talk to her. She's out of control or whatever thing we are thinking. Um, it's no longer true. It
Yeah.
just, it just feels amazing.
Yeah. Judy, thank you so much for being so vulnerable because I think that so often, right, we look at business programs, we look at coaching, we look at making money, we look at all these things and we categorize them, right? And this is over here, and this is over here, and this is over here. And when we go on things like, for example, people take their strengths and they go on this journey, you start to realize that these things have influenced everything, and they've helped you, they've hindered us, right? They've caused wedges. They create sometimes more questions than they provide answers. But thank you for being, number one, willing to go on the journey, but of yourself, of strengths. And I think that that's so often so many people miss is they take the strengths, they look at their top five and they say, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this. But what they don't know is how do those things actually play a role in their life? I mean, you've shared story after story about whether your personal life, cooking dinner for your husband, right? Going from this place to place, working together, and all these great things that you've shared. And it's because you become aware of these things. And then, like what you said with your children, because you and I talked about that, right? You and I
Yeah.
talked about some of the things there. And when you say 90%, I'm like, wow, that's amazing. Because I know with my own kids, its strengths has allowed me to be the parent I could never be. I could never be the parent I really wanted to be with my kids if I didn't take in consideration. So here I am, and it influenced the way I naturally think, feel, and behave. And so when I asked my kids to take the assessment, right, my now 14-year-old and my 21-year-old, and because I want to learn about them, it forces me to ask better questions. And we talked about this earlier about my son's empathy at number one. I didn't grow up this way. My wife didn't grow up this way. But now, if I really care enough, I need to acknowledge, okay, this drives this young man. And so, what do I
Mhm.
need to learn about him, and how do I support him so that he can be the person he is, and allow for him to do that? And so, same thing. I've seen the blessings I found from, yes, I do this as a career. Yes, I want to do this to move people forward. but when you talk about how it changes our family dynamic and the most intimate relationships that we maybe struggled with for so long, but we care so much about, there's power there, right? There's
Yeah.
beauty there.
Well, and to add to that, Philip, it allows us to apologize
Mm,
because we didn't see it with empathy, or we didn't. It's like it opens up a window that everyone gets permission to be their very best selves,
yes,
instead of, I have expectations of you and you didn't meet them,
yes,
which is really not fair,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, yes, it has changed everything for me.
I
I'm a
love it.
different person because of it.
Oh
And the
my God.
family is different because of it.
I bet, right? I bet when
Yeah,
we provide, not just when we take ownership ourselves, we also provide space for them to go on that road to discovery as well, right?
yeah.
So that's awesome. So in wrapping this up, Judi, I would love to know. So this is always fun, right? And we've, hopefully anybody watching this interview, I hope you guys can gain so much, just how influential knowing this information can be for ourselves, for our family, for influence in what we do in our career. Now, for many people, like I said, many people like yourself, maybe they took their assessment and they looked over it, right? They know their top five, but that's where it ends there. Maybe someone hasn't taken their assessment yet. What would be your biggest recommendation for someone that is, either restarting their journey or starting their strengths journey? Based on where you started almost 9 years ago to where you are today with yours, what would be your greatest recommendation that you can offer to someone, as they go through this?
Go all in.
Mm,
I have a team member, Philip, that I've been working with practically since I started in doTERRA, and she's only takes the top five.
mm,
She doesn't have the rest of the test. And it doesn't matter. I've stood on my head, I've begged, I've offered to pay for it, anything you can think of. She won't get it.
yeah.
And it tells me that it's her. She doesn't feel good. She's afraid of what she's going to find out, right? There's
Mm,
some flaw. There's something that's going
yes.
to be, I don't know what it is, because she's a wonderful person. So I don't
Yeah.
think it's going to be that. But in her mind, she has a belief or a something that there's something fundamentally wrong with her, and she's not going to want me to see it.
Wow.
And so uh, I would just say, trust the process, go all in, and know that you're safe. You're
Mm,
safe because you are a special, unique individual, and you can hire a coach. If you don't love every trait, which I imagine most people don't, Philip, I'm just guessing. I'm not in your line of work, but
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
guessing most people don't like all of their traits when they first read them. Get someone to help you fall in love with yourself, because it changes how you present yourself in the world. It gives you a level of confidence that you may not have had before,
yeah,
because you thought, well, maybe I'm defective. Maybe I talk too much. Maybe I'm too gregarious. Maybe I'm too introverted, right?
yeah,
You're extroverted, I'm introverted.
yes,
Um, and we think, well, I can't make sales. I'm an introvert. I can't get
yeah,
on planes and teach classes. I'm an introvert.
yes,
We make a lot of excuses for things that just simply aren't true.
yeah,
Once we realize that we have something to gift the world, well, there isn't much that holds us back. We're
yes.
excited to do that, whatever
So
that
true.
is.
Yeah.
When my kids were growing up, I used to say to them, I have college athletes, and I got competitions number 28, Philip. I'm not competitive at all, but I am disciplined. So they're very
There you
disciplined
go.
people.
Yes,
But I used to say to them, God doesn't need any more average people. He's got plenty of them.
yes.
And my kids took this test in 2016 too.
Mm,
And so now that they're all adults, and I can say, hey, you know what? That daughter over there is the best at planning a vacation. Tag,
yes.
you're it. And she gets us through Europe and catches all the trains and gets all the right flights, and she does all of it, right? That is her, she's skilled. So you
Right.
look at everyone's traits and everyone's gifts, and you're like, as a family, you're just in a much better working unit. It's
Yes.
it's like having a team.
Yes. Yes. I love it. Absolutely love it. Well, Judi, thank you so much. Like, you've shared so many golden nuggets, so much information, so many great stories that, and again, I love just the dynamic of listening to your harmony versus someone else's, and then all the different characteristics, all the different strengths, all the different gifts that influence those things. We're complex. And the more
Mhm.
we find joy and passion in individuality, the more we can shine as, what you talked about earlier, God's way of showing us how unique we are, right? How
Right.
special we are. And so I love it for that exact same reason. So thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you so much for being willing to share your experience, be vulnerable, and share what Strengths has done for you. Because I know that there's a lot of people out there. Yes, we want to be successful in business. Yes, we want to pursue the things that we love, but we love our families, and we love our kids,
Mhm.
and we love our spouses, and we would love for those dynamics to change in our home as well. So thank you again, so much for being here. And I want to thank
Thank
everybody
you.
for watching this interview. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you for being a part of this experience. We want to continue interviewing great people that that are facing real life, that are facing their business, that are doing different things, so we can kind of relate, right? How do our themes match up with them? How do our stories, how can we rate, and what can we learn? And I just want to reiterate what Judi said: go all in. If there's anything that go all in, it is a transformational experience when you don't know your strengths or just take the assessment. But when you do, when you go all in, we were talking about this before our interview about doing your homework. You need to go all the way in through the process, all the way in through doing this. And what you'll find out about yourself will blow your mind. It will dramatically shift decades, right? Decades
Mhm.
of ideas or concepts, trauma experiences, and you start to extrapolate. Okay, this was the emotional part of it, but these were the details. These were the things that would influence me. This is what I can shift. This is what I can do different, and how you can create the life that you actually want. So jump in, join this journey, and continue following us here on the Strength Studio as we continue to interview more and more people and their experiences with strengths, and their experiences with their family, and their experiences with their relationship, and their experiences with their business. How are they achieving their dreams? How are they achieving their financial goals? How are they using them to build teams, to create leadership in their organizations in order to thrive and create great environments for their people? So thank you again, Judi. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
thank you so much
Bye
for joining me, guys. And we'll see you next time here on the Strength Studio. Bye-bye.
bye.